January 17th, 1961, after being prime minister for just over 3 months, the first freely elected prime minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo was assassinated, 35 years old. Of course, his name was Patrice Emily Lumumba. Patrice Lumumba, very important figure. Patrice Lumumba, first prime minister of Congo, very important. Born 1925, so he was 4 years older than Dr. King, not quite. He's born in July. Born in Kasai province, small national group, the Bateta group, Bateta national group. He was what they would call during the period évolué. Évolué is like a continental African, an African person who gets access to white education. He went to a mission school, the Protestants. He came out. He's a Western educated African, and he started writing. He was writing for the Congolese journals. He got involved in organizing. He moved to Kinshasa, which they called Leopoldville at the time, of course, to be a postal clerk. He does stuff. He's organizing. He gets involved in the trade unions, and it's very important because then he gets involved in politics, and we go on and we talk about the fact he launched something called the Congolese National Movement, 1958, and is swept into power. He goes to the All African People's Conference in Accra. See, King is there in Ghana, and Nkrumah them take power, and then shortly thereafter, Nkrumah's like, seek ye first the political kingdom. You know what? We're going to now have the United States of Africa. Let's start getting people in. So you see Mandela in up there before, Ravonia trial. You see Lumumba come in there. You see, Sekou Touré. They're going to begin organizing. This is a problem for the social structure because, see, they always organized. They organize and then they put a label over it that makes you think you're in it when in fact you're not. The label they use, by the way, in the social structure globally that they use that you ain't a part of is the international community. Anytime you read a newspaper or see on TV, the international community frowns on the Palestinians throwing rocks. What is the international community? I read an article many years ago in Foreign Affairs, one of the journals, where they say you got to make a distinction between international community and international community. When you see the phrase international community with a capital I and a capital C, that's the United States, England, France, the G7, and then they expanded to G20 because you got Russia and y'all be beefing, and then China you can't keep out. But that little core that makes the decision, which at the core is white, until they can't stop people like China. But when you see international community, that phrase with lowercase I, lowercase c, that's everybody in the world. But there ain't no everybody in the world meeting. But see, Nkrumah and them start going, and this is a problem. This is a problem now. Because see, after World War II, when you set up international bodies to try to regulate the kind of reshuffling of European settler colonialism that has been taking place over the last several centuries. So you get the United Nations, 1945, you get the International Money Fund, you get the World Bank. In other words, you got to have these institutions to keep this process going. In that crack, you begin to see these non-white countries fighting, taking their independence, as King says. No, you didn't even concede anything. And then they start organizing each other. The Bandung Conference, 1955, the Afro-Asian Conference, and King writes about the Afro-Asian Conference and the fact that even though he is nonviolent, he said when they begin to form with each other, you can't push them around anymore. So he's got all this stuff going. And see, what you see in Patrice Lumumba's case is a difficult moment because when Lumumba is finally elected to the prime ministership, we're talking about local elections, December 1959. You see political violence. They put Lumumba in jail. They say he's inciting a riot. Then they bring everybody to Brussels because remember, Belgium, that criminal Leopold, is the reason this thing is in a mess that it's in the first place. Mark Twain wrote about it in King Leopold's soliloquy. What's my man's name? George Washington Williams writes about it. The African shepherd was a missionary in Central Africa. We talk more about, maybe we should do a whole thing on Congo. We should, by the way, shout out to my man, Sam Livingston, my dear friend and brother in African Studies at Morehouse. On Monday, they will be doing something to commemorate, to mark with the Friends of the Congo, a very important international organization. Some of y'all Nubians probably in it. Not only the killing of Patrice Lumumba, he was assassinated on the 17th of January, 1960, with the help of the Central Intelligence Agency. There's a book called Chief of Station, Congo, which talks about all this. And then they hacked his body up, put him in this container of acid, disseminated. Only thing left from him were a couple of teeth. And so, remember, we talked about that last summer when we talking about, they're going to allow, they said, the remains of Patrice Lumumba. Don't call it remains, some teeth. And you're going to get them back to his children. Why? Because y'all, there's graphic detail about all that. I won't get too deep into it, but I really want to kind of wind to a conclusion today. We're going to begin to, get this a little tighter. The Patrice Lumumba, after he was killed, he's taken out of power. Because Patrice Lumumba for the United States of Africa too. Patrice Lumumba, who is not without contradictions, is very important. One of the criticisms, of course, you see, and even a conversation with his wife he's having on the verge of them taking power in Congo. His wife is like, okay, we know about you every ways. I love you. Every ways, y'all you get in power, then you get rid of your wives, and you go find these white women. Ooh. That's what's gonna happen. I know it ain't gonna happen with you. I love you, but you need to talk to your friends. In other words, and it's crazy. You see the number of them who do that. What's my man who's in Senegal? Leopold Senghor, same thing. Sister he met in France. He's from Caribbean. They was married for years, their children together, and then he come to power. Here come the white woman. Clarence Thomas. Oh, sorry. Then wait. Sorry. Then you have Unite Freddie Duck. Oh, sorry. But the first wife is black. This is an African phenomenon too. So not without contradictions. You understand? And people say, well, you shouldn't say anything because people love who they love. No, people love who they socialize to love. This ain't got nothing to do with biology. This ain't got nothing to do with affection. This got everything to do with socialization. Why do you aspire to that? Because you didn't aspire to it at the beginning? Or were you always with your whole heart hoping for it? And once you got in a position to do it, now you've been drafted and you're in. Anyway, point is, I don't mean the military draft. I mean the plantation draft known as professional athletics. And, or maybe, they meet you at the plane with the boosters and cheerleaders. And I've seen that happen many times at Ohio State. Not at Temple so much. John Chaney wasn't having that shit. But anyway, at Ohio State, that was the coin of the realm, baby. Anyways, I've seen it happen many times. But the point is, that's socialization. That's not love. Love is love without context. Now you just talking. That's abstract. It's like talking like saying men or women of the movement. Okay, yeah. But anyway, the point is that Lumumba was assassinated. And of course, Congo goes through all these years today, till to this day, of turmoil and struggle and trying to bring people together. But one thing is consistent among many other things. But one thing is consistent in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Even after he was killed, everybody want to identify with him. Now, why do we compare on December 17th, 1960, the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, 61 rather, and the birth of Martin Luther King on, January 17th, 1961, the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, and the birth of Martin Luther King, January 15th, 1929, Atlanta, Georgia. We combine them because after they are both assassinated and taken out, and if you don't think that both those things were for this virtually the same reason, you're not paying attention. In fact, Martin King in this book talks about assassinations. He talks about Kennedy's assassination in Why We Can't Wait. And it's interesting because when he says Kennedy was killed, let me see if I can find it quickly. It's in the last chapter, The Days to Come. He says Kennedy's assassinated, and he says Negroes tragically know political assassinations well. In the life of Negro civil rights leaders, the whine of the bullet from ambush, the roar of the bomb have all too often broken the night's silence. They have replaced lynching as a political weapon. This is Martin Luther King. I have a dream. Now I'm going to go read Why We Can't Wait. Page 144, The Days to Come. King goes on, says, let me repeat that last line. They have replaced lynching as a political weapon. This man himself going to be taken out by a bullet. And he's saying, shooting at black people is the new lynching. This is 2 generations before Sandra Bland, who y'all said hung herself in her cell. Come on now. Lynching. This is generations before Breonna Taylor is killed in her bed. These bullets are the new lynching. King continues and he says, more than a decade ago, sudden death came to Mr. and Mrs. Harry T. Moore, NAACP leaders in Florida. The Reverend George Lee of Belzoni, Mississippi, was shot to death on the steps of a rural courthouse. The bombings multiplied. 1963 was a year of assassinations. Medgar Evers in Jackson, Mississippi. William Moore in Alabama. 6 Negro children in Birmingham. And who could doubt that these too were political assassinations? He says the unforgivable default of our society has been its failure to apprehend the assassins. It is a harsh judgment, but undeniably true that the cause of the indifference was the identity of the victims. You know what he's writing about this chapter? The assassination of John Kennedy, November 22nd, 1963. And he's saying, since y'all want to talk about Kennedy, let's talk. King goes on and says, nearly all were Negroes, and so the plague spread until it claimed the most eminent American, a warmly loved and respected president. Remember Malcolm X saying the chickens came home to roost? Well, damn, here's Martin Luther King writing the same thing. He said this violence, y'all, except Malcolm said it was all over the world. He would have added Patrice Lumumba to that list. He would have added all the other, you know what I'm saying? But then King, look at this now. King said, see, it went all around and then it claimed your friend. Watch this sentence right here. Remember, King don't report to the president. He report to God. King writes the words of Jesus. Quote, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. And quote, were more than a figurative expression. They were a literal prophecy. King reading that colored Bible. They ain't got no label on the front, but now imagine that. They mad at Malcolm. Clearly you didn't read King. Said the same thing. And then put the Bible verse on your ass. Inasmuch as you did it to Medgar, as you did it to Addie Mae and Cynthia, inasmuch as you did it to Virgil and Johnny, inasmuch as you did it to Denise, you did it to Kennedy. Don't play with me. You know, I said I have a dream, and y'all bombed that church in Birmingham. And then John Coltrane, cultural meaning making, wrote a song to the sermon I gave that day in the 16th Street Baptist Church. Y'all keep mistaking us for just people living in the United States of America. We are citizens of the world. We came from Africa, and the world exists in reality, and we got something that we report to that's bigger than you can even imagine. That's what Howard Thurman taught me. So you messing around. And on Monday, they're going to talk about painting schools. They're going to talk about holding hands. And they're going to walk right by Martin Luther King on the way to talk about Martin Luther King. Now,